We're going to give everybody just a few more minutes, girls, and then we'll get started, all right? All right, guys, can you all hear me? So either just give me a thumbs up or say yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Make sure you guys turn your screens on so I can give you guys credit for being in class today. Okay, we're still waiting on a few people, but we will get them in as soon as they show up. Today is not going to be the longest lecture. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a review, and then we're going to go over what we're going to do for next week, along with your assignment that you guys are going to be starting for 420. Okay, so we will go over that as well today, so then we can talk about it in class on Tuesday if you need to. We'll go over groups, all that kind of stuff, so you guys are good to go to do that, since we don't have too much to go over today. Okay, does anybody have any questions on any of that stuff thus far? Okay. If at any point you guys have a question, just stop. You guys don't need to raise your hand or anything. I don't know how you did in other classes, but we have a relatively small class, so you should be able to just shout it out and I should be able to stop. No big deal. So just make sure you guys let me know. Okay. And yeah, you guys can probably see that I still have all my Christmas decorations up in the background because I'm lazy and haven't taken it down yet. So yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, let's get into it. So obviously, remember we talked about how we're not going to go over exercise science too much since you guys have all had this in previous classes. However, I want to review really quickly what I want you guys to know. We're not going to go into it with too much detail, but you guys should be able to then reference this lecture as to what you guys need to know for the remainder of the class. And also you have access to all of these slides on your Blackboard. Okay. Does anybody remember the 3 systems of the body that make up the human movement system? Take a stab at it, guys. So what makes you move? There's 2 systems.
What is it, Pete?
Is it the skeletal?
Skeletal is one of it. How about the other one?
Cardiac.
So you have muscles. What pulls on your muscles to make them work?
Tendons.
Say it again.
Tendons.
Tendons, but okay, so your tendons attached to what?
Ligaments.
My biceps are what?
Muscles.
Biceps, quads, hamstrings. What are those in your body, guys?
Joints.
They're not joints. Let's think about it.
Ligaments.
If I'm contracting something, I'm contracting my bicep. What is my bicep called?
They're muscles, right?
Muscles. Okay.
Oh, okay.
We have the skeletal.
I said muscles.
Oh, sorry, Flo. I didn't hear you. This is the problem with Zoom. Okay, yeah. So we have skeletal system, muscle system, and then what has that mind to body connection? What's that system?
The nervous system.
The nervous system. Perfect. So those 3 systems are what is part of your human kinetic chain. This is what causes movement in your body, okay? Remember, you start with the nervous system. You have to have the neurons fire to your muscles to make them move, okay? Remember, if we touch something, we have our sensory neurons, goes to our brains, okay? Then it sends messages back to the motor neurons in order to actually be able to pick something up. Okay, our skeletal system obviously creates structure in the framework of our body. It's also used for protection around organs, things of that nature. And then our muscles are what actually pull on our bones in order to move the body. You cannot function or have movement without one of the systems. Okay, so if someone has like muscular sclerosis, something of those natures, you can obviously see that they cannot move their muscles quick enough because they have a neurological disorder. Okay, you have a broken bone, you have to put it in a cast. You're not going to be able to move that portion of your body until it heals. So it's a big connection. Okay. So chapter 1 obviously goes over all of the structures and the functions of the bodies. We're not going to go through this slide this PowerPoint, there's 80 slides, okay? But what it's going to do, if you guys need to reference something, or if I reference something in a lecture, this is the perfect place for you guys to go to look at what you need, okay? It's going to go through, obviously, you guys should remember your vertebral column, okay? So you have cervical, thoracic, lumbar. It's okay if you don't remember it right away. This is why you guys need to make sure that you are utilizing these slides in order to get your answers if you're not able to get a hold of me as well, okay? Then it's going to go through your muscular system, okay? So familiarize yourself with the anatomy of the muscles, okay? How they contract. You don't necessarily need to know all the steps of the sliding filament theory, okay? But you have to understand how we send that neurological chemical response, okay, that is then going to go into an electrical signal, okay, remember? And then we have those sarcomeres in our muscles. Let me see if I can find a slide. Okay, so let me look, hold on. Okay, so here. So we have these sarcomeres, remember? They're what cause have the striations in your muscles, okay, so the light and dark. Okay, remember, they pull towards each other and overlap in order for your muscle to actually contract. Okay, can you guys remember how you want these lines to be standing in order to get maximum muscular contraction? So if they're all the way pulled apart at resting length, or they're completely contracted, where do you guys think we can get the most force out of a muscle? Think about it for maximal contraction. What do you guys think? So think about it. So if they're pulled apart, so let's say our muscle is completely stretched out. Okay, are we going to be able to produce a lot of force this way? What do you guys think?
No.
No, the same as if our muscle is completely overlapped, completely contracted. Okay, now you've already had that contraction. You need to go back to resting length, which is what this slide is right here, for your sarcomeres to then contract, come together. Okay, so I just want you guys to be able to actually think about how things work. As we go through this stuff, it'll all start coming back to you, or I will obviously touch on all of that. Let me just go through some of these slides in order to see what else we need to go over. Here we go. Do you guys remember your proprioceptors? Do you remember the word proprioception? Do you kind of remember what that means for the body? Can anyone try to give me in their own terms what that would mean? So the best way to maybe think about it is if you've had an injury, okay? If you've had an injury, okay, basically proprioception means your body understanding where you are in space. If you were to stand on one foot, your body has receptors that tell you how you are standing on the foot. It can tell you if my foot inverts a little bit, if it everts, if my ankle's starting to wobble, if my knee is starting to wobble. Without our proprioceptors, our body cannot tell what we are doing. So if we have an injury, a lot of the times we damage the proprioceptors. So we need to have rehab in order to gain that mind to muscle connection back from the nervous system. And then obviously teach our muscles with our muscular system how to fire again. Okay, so the proprioceptors that I want you guys to remember we have muscle spindles, okay? Muscle spindles are what sense lengthening in our muscle and they contract, okay? It's a way to keep our body from stretching our muscle too far in order to cause injury, okay? Does that make sense? Do you guys kind of remember that? If you don't, we'll go over it again. Okay, and then, so obviously you guys see here, it says it's responsive for that stretch reflex. So when you guys go to the doctor and they hit your knee below your kneecap and your knee comes out like this, that's a stretch reflex, okay? Your muscle spindles are contracting because they feel that stretch within your tendon, okay? Your GTOs, Golgi tendon organs, do sense the opposite, okay? So if there's too much tension in your muscle, okay, or there's a rate of too much tension in your muscle, your GTOs cause your muscle to relax, okay? So when we get into the stretching component of all of this, Golgi tendon organs and muscle spindles are going to be important. So we will review this again, okay? Do you guys remember the terms autogenic and reciprocal inhibition at all with stretching? It's okay if you don't, because we are going to go over this, but just remember Golgi tendons and muscle spindles are something that is going to come up a lot in this class. Okay, as for that one, obviously it also goes over the cardiovascular system. We don't need to touch on that too much right now because we will touch on that when we go over aerobic training and things of that nature. Okay, any questions on what I've gone over on chapter 1? It's pretty straightforward as we go into it. I think it will all come back to you guys if you don't remember it right now. Okay, I just want to touch on one more thing. Okay, let me see if I can find my slides. Okay. Okay, you guys can all see that it says bioenergetics of exercise and training, correct? Yes, okay. All right, do you guys remember what bioenergetics is? Anyone? Okay, you guys remember the glycolytic system, the anaerobic glycolysis, aerobic glycolysis, those types of things?
They sound familiar.
Okay, they sound familiar. It'll come back to you. This is why we're reviewing. Okay, so when, let me go. Okay, the reason you guys need to know about the bioenergetics of your body. So it's your metabolism and how your body is using the energy, the substrates that are in our body. So carbohydrates, fat, protein, how our body is using that to create movement and create energy. Okay, so when we get into actually building workouts, okay, it's going to be dependent on your sport. We kind of touched on this when we were talking about volleyball. It is a sport that requires quick movements and reaction in different directions as well as powerful movements, okay? It's going to be different than when we take a cross-country runner, okay? So they are going to be using different body systems in order to supply the energy for their bodies, okay? So we're gonna go through this really quick because this is actually very important. Okay, so your phosphagen system, it's also called the CP system. Okay, your phosphagen system is a system in your body that uses creatine phosphate, which is a CP, okay, to create energy, okay? This is a system that is used in your body regardless of intensity all the time at the beginning of a movement, okay? So whether I am actually doing a power movement, say a medicine ball throw, or I am sitting up from a chair, I am using the phosphagen system, okay? It initiates movement in your body. However, the phosphagen system is what is used for powerful movements anywhere between 1 to 5, 6 seconds, okay? It uses our creatine phosphate, okay? And the reason that we use this system quickly is if we go down to here, okay? Do you guys remember ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It is what we use in our body to create the energy. Okay, we take substrates, we break them down to ATP. ATP is what gives us energy. Okay, so in your phosphagen system, it is taking the phosphate off of creatine phosphate to create an ATP. The reason this is quick and you use it for powerful movements because there's one step. That's all you are doing. Okay, it happens without oxygen. Okay, so you don't need oxygen. It's occurring in your sarcoplasm of your cells, which is like the fluid part of your cells. Okay, and it's taking the phosphagen off the creatine to create ATP. Okay, so if I'm saying it's using, we're going for power movements here. Okay, anything between 5 and 6 seconds. What are some movements that you can think of that would be using the phosphagen system? If we're thinking about resistance training or even something going along the lines of sprinting. Can you guys think of something that would use the phosphagen system? What's a power movement? Some kind of power exercise.
Power squats.
Well, describe what a power squat is, Flo. What would you mean by a power squat?
When you jump basically with the weights on your shoulders.
So we could do that as a form of, yes, like a box jump. Okay. Okay. If you had a bar on your back and you jumped into a box jump, or you just did a jump up. Yes, that would be considered a power movement that we would use in the phosphagen system. Can you guys think of any, even if you haven't done them before, can you think of any Olympic lifts that we would use? I'm not sure if you guys know that terminology yet, which I will teach you if you don't.
Power clean.
Power clean, that's a good one. Okay, so power clean, snatch, a push press from here. Those are all movements that require maximal power in a quick format. Okay, so we are using the phosphagen system. Good. All right, you guys are definitely thinking in the right place. Since this is a high intensity activity, okay, anytime we were doing a high intensity activity, is our rest period after that activity going to be short or long?
Won't it be short?
Think about it. If I'm
it'll
using
be long.
maximal energy, I'm using all the ATP in my body. Do we think we're going to need to rest longer to gain that back, or we can rest really quick?
Rest longer.
Rest longer. So we would have our shorter rest periods if we were doing muscular endurance, only because if you think we're doing muscular endurance, obviously we need to sustain those contractions over a long period of time, but we're also not going to be using as heavy of weight. Okay. So when we do something that's super high intensity, the rest period is going to be greater. So this will kind of go along the lines of once we get into our workouts, okay, and we structure what goes first. This is why a power exercise goes first. You need maximal ATP in order to do the actual movement, okay? If you guys are a little bit confused, it's okay. I will go over all of this again, okay? I promise. Okay. Let's go to glucose. Okay, so we have our phosphagen CP system that we're using creatine phosphate. Okay, so that's number one, anywhere between like 1 to 5, 6 seconds. Okay, once we have gone out of that system, our body doesn't just use one system. If the movement continues, we go into the next bodies or the next movement systems in our body. Okay, so the next would be glycolysis. Okay, glycolysis is going to be split up into anaerobic and aerobic. Do you guys remember what the difference between anaerobic and aerobic is?
One of them use more oxygen than the other.
One of them uses oxygen, one of them does not use oxygen. So you're on the right track. So which one uses oxygen? What doesn't use oxygen?
Anaerobic doesn't use oxygen.
Perfect. Anaerobic, and then yes, you're going to say aerobic uses oxygen. Sorry,
Yeah.
I cut you off. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we need to remember, yes, anaerobic is without oxygen, aerobic is with oxygen. So glycolysis has two forms. Okay. So remember, we have glucose in our body, which is also stored in the form of glycogen. Glucose is readily available in our bloodstream. Glycogen is stored in our liver and muscles for later use. So when we have glycogen, we have to take the glycogen and convert it to glucose in our bloodstream to be used. You guys don't need to know all the steps of this, okay? You just have to understand that that's what's happening, okay? That process creates ATP, okay? Out of carbs, protein, and fats, do you remember what the body prefers to use for energy?
Fat.
I thought it was carbs.
Carbs.
No, it's carb.
Carbs. So fat provides, well, no, you're on the right track. Listen, fat provides the longest amount of energy. But in order to use fat for energy in our body, it takes a longer period to get to that. Okay. Carbs are what is readily available in your body. This is why when people don't eat carbs and they want to be able to function, okay, it's a big no-no. You need carbohydrates, okay? I'm not talking you got to go eat pieces of cake all day long, okay? But you have to be using complex carbohydrates to give yourself energy, okay? The body prefers to use carbs. It's readily available. It's quick, okay? You need fat though, okay? Because fat is used with aerobic glycolysis. And then once we get to beta oxidation, which is fat, you're using oxygen, and we need to use oxygen to restore our ATP stores. I will get to that. But yes, carbohydrates is what we prefer to use, okay? So it is stored in the form of glycogen in our liver and muscles, brought into our bloodstream as glucose in order to be used, okay? So if we go to anaerobic, let me just go to here, hold on. Okay. If we go, there's anaerobic glycolysis, and aerobic glycolysis, okay? Which one do you think we use first after we go from the phosphagen system? What do you guys think? If we're readily using carbohydrates without oxygen, which one do you think?
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic. Yes, we would go to anaerobic first, okay? So now we take that glucose, we convert it to what is called pyruvate, okay? And then the pyruvate becomes lactate. And that step right here, the pyruvate becoming lactate, is what gives you ATP, okay? Lactate gives off lactic acid, which creates that burn in your body, okay? So when you guys are doing heavy resistance training or you're sprinting really fast and you start to feel that burn in your body, that is the reaction of lactate creating lactic acid in your
That's
body.
that last 60 meters in the 400.
Exactly. And that's exactly why those people that are doing those exercises need to train for that power to have that last push. So yes, you guys are absolutely thinking awesome here. Okay, so after we have anaerobic glycolysis, okay, so we have to remember, if we're not using oxygen, we went from the phosphagen system to anaerobic glycolysis, okay? We're still high intensity, okay? We're still going only anaerobic glycolysis is normally only from like 10 to maybe 30 seconds, okay? That 30 seconds depends on if your body can get to that, okay? If you are more trained, you might be able to get to those 30 seconds, okay? And produce the power for longer. Once we start burning off those carbs and we don't have oxygen anymore, we're still using carbohydrates, but we're going to switch into the aerobic glycolysis system. So the difference between the anaerobic glycolysis system and the aerobic glycolysis system is obviously we're using oxygen in aerobic glycolysis, but how we know which system we go into is what happens to pyruvate. Okay, so here in your first one, pyruvate becomes lactate. Okay, in aerobic glycolysis, your pyruvate gets switched into aceto-CoA, which then goes into this Krebs cycle and goes through it twice to actually make ATP. So you see, as we continue, aerobic glycolysis has more steps in order to create ATP than aerobic glycolysis. So you guys can see how your body, the more steps you have, okay, the longer it takes to create actual ATP. So if we are using aerobic glycolysis here, okay, and we have created ATP, we are now using oxygen to create this ATP. Is everybody with me so far? Okay, so if we're thinking of intensity here, I am still high intensity in my anaerobic glycolysis. What intensity do you guys think I would be at if I went into aerobic glycolysis? High, medium, low.
Medium.
Medium.
Low-ish.
Yeah, it would be medium. Okay. Obviously, like I said, it depends on your training level, but you would stay in this system. Your body is able to sustain this system between 30 to 50, maybe 60 seconds. Okay. So can you guys give me some type of exercises that you think maybe aerobic glycolysis would use? Or like a running event, anything along those lines, whatever you guys think. So let's just take the sport of lacrosse, just because that's the sport that I play and coach. So lacrosse is any field sport like that, soccer, field hockey, maybe not so much football because it's one play after another and then it stops, okay? Lacrosse players need to have both anaerobic and aerobic capacity, okay? They need to have that anaerobic capacity, right? Like Flo was saying, that last 60 or however many meters you have to get. So if a lacrosse player is running up and down the field, let's say before a whistle, okay, they're probably running up and down the field for a good 30, 50 seconds before there's possibly a whistle, okay? So if you can see, I'm just trying to get you guys to visualize different sports, okay, that might actually then go into your aerobic glycolysis system. If we are doing workouts, okay, and say we are doing maybe hypertrophy workouts can be in this. If we are doing anywhere from say 6 to 12 reps, okay, and I'm doing a back squat, that's going to take me at least 30 seconds, okay? If I'm doing a hypertrophy workout, I'm not at that super high intensity. If I was at that super high intensity, I would be working on my maximal strength. I would be in the aerobic glycolysis system, okay? Does this make sense to everybody a little bit more? Okay. If you have questions, just ask. Okay, so then obviously, as we go down, then our last systems would be our oxidative systems, okay? In our oxidative systems, what are we burning to get energy? We already burnt carbs. Now what are we burning in these systems? What do you guys think?
Fat.
Fat. Yeah, it also says that on the slide. But yes, we are burning fat. Okay. So if we are burning fat, what do we think in our oxidative systems? What do we think our intensity should be in our body to actually be burning fat?
Shouldn't it be like a high intensity?
Think about it. So if we were
A lower, longer.
it would be lower. Then the reason it would be lower, so in order to get to that fat burning phase, okay, we've already burned off our carbohydrates, okay? And now we are going into our fat burning zone. And in order to burn fat, we have to be at a lower intensity. So we're normally between 40 to 60% of your maximal heart rate to kind of be considered low intensity, okay? The thing with this system is if you're thinking about a marathon runner, okay, they are able to run at a higher intensity for a longer period of time than say me if I was doing a marathon, okay? I'm not a trained marathoner. I would burn out my carbohydrate stores much, much quicker and then go into the oxidative system, okay? And my body would have to be trained in order to use my fat, okay? So it's easier for your body to burn carbohydrates. However, you need carbohydrates to burn fat. So if you are more trained, you know how to utilize your carbohydrate stores for a longer period of time, okay, than actually getting right into that fat burning, okay? Because it's going to be able to provide me with more energy. So have you guys ever heard of if somebody is doing a marathon, they'll carb load, all right, before they actually, that week before their race.
Eat pasta. Eat pasta.
Or if you guys ever have sporting events like the night before, you'll probably eat a lot of pasta, things of that nature, sandwiches, whatever you want. The reason for that is your body is trying to take those carbohydrates and store them in your body, okay? Your fat stores never go away. You'll have fat stores. It is impossible to burn all your fat stores, okay? Unless you are completely malnourished kind of thing. Your carb stores, you can burn out your carb stores. So this is why even during a sporting event that's say an hour long, you supplement with liquid carbohydrates in the form of glucose. So you could either use those gels, or you could have things like Gatorade, which has carbohydrates in it in the form of sugar. You need to keep those carb stores going in order to give you energy and in order to help you burn fat. You can't burn fat without carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are what continue to create ATP to keep the systems going. Okay. So even if you're burning fat, you are using carbohydrates to keep the system going. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I want you guys to take away from this is just think about what we are burning in each system, what the intensity would be, how long the duration would be. So you could stay in your oxidative system up to 3 hours. You have to be trained in order to do that. Okay, obviously, for me, I'd probably burn out of it really quickly just because I wouldn't have the carbohydrate stores and the training to continue with that cycle. Okay, so just make sure you guys review these and you think about what type of exercises and intensity would be in each actual system. This is going to be very important when we get into the sports that we choose, when we're talking about the resistance training section, the aerobic training section, all those types of things. Okay, and then last thing, just remember your body's not just using one system at a time. So obviously, yes, if you just stand up from your chair, maybe you're just using your Phosphagen system, but you stand up from your chair, you walk somewhere, okay? You're using the next system. They keep cycling and going into each other. Once I rest, I regain my ATP. So if I'm doing, or CP stores, okay? So if I rest 2 to 3 minutes after a power exercise, I can get those ATP and CP stores back so that I can do the exercise again. Okay, like I said, fat does not diminish. Okay, so we don't need to rest as long. Okay, so if we are doing muscular endurance workouts, so 12 to 20 sets, okay, we're not using as high of a weight. Okay, we're not burning our carb stores and our fat stores off pretty quick. We can rest for 15 to 30 seconds and be right back into it. Okay, have I confused anyone completely? Okay. All right. That's really all I wanted to go over in terms of exercise science. Once we touch on other sections of our chapters, I will review if we need to. So if I'm talking about something and I'm referencing, I know we didn't talk about levers of the body or anything, and we're not going to talk about it that much, but I'll use it as an example. If I'm referencing something and I'm asking if it's a first or third class lever and you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, let me know. I will break it down and I will go back into it. It's okay if you may not remember it. Okay. Some of you may have taken kinesiology a long time ago. It might not be fresh in our heads. I know we were all on a 5-week break and we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I get it. Okay. So just make sure you guys let me know. I'm happy to break things down with you. Okay. All right. So if we're okay with that, I'm going to move on. I'm going to go over your form assignment that you guys will have to do either by yourselves or in groups for 420 next week. I want to touch on it now so that next week when you guys are working on it, we can chat about it Tuesday in class if we need to. Did everybody do their homework and think about who they want in their groups? If not, you guys have a little bit of time to figure that out. Okay, hold on. Let me find the sheet since I have so many things open here. Okay.
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead. What's up?
Are we gonna be doing? Are we gonna like work on this during class time, or do you want us to do it like outside of class?
So that's the thing for you guys to think about. I'm going to try to give you as much class time as I can, even if it's only like 15 minutes on Tuesdays. Okay, since that's the only day that we are meeting. Which technically we're supposed to just be meeting for the 400 class, but last year we did it this way and it worked pretty well. I want to give you guys time to work on it together if you aren't in groups. So this is why I wanted you guys to think about if you don't want to do it with a group because you think it's going to be hard to meet with an individual or your group because we are not on campus all the time and because we are in the middle of a pandemic, I will let you guys do it on your own. It's personal preference. I don't want to pressure you to work with a group if you don't think that you can work with a group for numerous reasons. Does that kind of answer your question, Jacob?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so just think about it. If you guys don't quite know yet, or if you are in a group and then you realize working with the group is difficult, you can tell me halfway through it and we can adjust. We did that last time that I taught this class, so it's okay. Okay, it's kind of a trial and error since we're not in class all the time. Okay, all right. Let's go over this exercise collection proper form thing. I know we kind of did already, but I want to go over what the actual parameters are for this. Okay, so if you have not looked at your Blackboard for 420 yet, there are, I believe, 4 different sections that say proper form. Under proper form, under each of those, I will put which part of the proper form section of your manual you need to work on. Okay, I have not put it up for the first one yet, so just bear with me. So the first one, you guys are going to be doing resistance training. Okay, I'll write all the directions down there so you know. So you're going to be focusing on whatever sport you choose, putting together a library per se of 16 upper body exercises, 12 lower body exercises, and 12 basic core. If you guys can't get to the 12 basic core, I'm not as worried about that because we'll have functional core later, and functional core exercises are way more important than your basic core, which is like a sit-up. Okay, it's really not doing that much for you. Okay, so this is what you will be focusing on your first one. So as I go through this, when you guys see dynamic warm-up, all that stuff, don't freak out. You don't need to worry about those yet. Okay, so what you are going to be doing for this, okay, whether you are on your own or in a group, you have to take pictures of yourself doing the exercise. So now this is the tricky part. If we need class time to do this, I can try to get class time for us to do it, and we can try to get into the gym or the athletic building in order for you guys to do this. I do not know, do you guys on a regular basis have access to the athletic building or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And well, that's good. So if you have access to it and you're actually able to go in there and either film yourself or film your partner doing the exercises, then I feel okay still having you guys actually take the picture of the exercise. That's how the assignment really is supposed to be, because in an actual world, or if you guys were actually doing this for your profession, as a strength and conditioning coach, you should be able to actually show whoever you are teaching how to do the exercise. Okay, I'm not saying you have to back squat 300 pounds or clean 200 pounds. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying basic form. Okay, so if we are okay with that, if we go through this first unit of the resistance training and we find that it is really difficult to get somewhere because of all the stuff that's going on with this pandemic to actually take pictures of yourselves or your partner, we can adjust and we can find them online. But for now, I want you guys to try to focus on that. Okay, so you're gonna have to try to take pictures of yourself. Okay, so once you have done that, okay, oh, maybe they're not in here. Okay, so then down here, if you guys can see, all right, it says for proper form parameters, you will need to summarize the instructions for each exercise in bold above. Okay, so anything that's in bold is what you guys will have to do. Like I said, we're just focusing on resistance training now, so please do not worry about this stuff. Okay, you're gonna have to put proper form parameters in bullet points. Okay, so what I mean by that is we'll have the picture, and either to the side of it or on the bottom, it's however you guys want to structure this. And this is why I will bring all of our the actual binders that I have so you can look through it and understand how you guys want to do it. You will have to put bullet points of the proper form that you need for each exercise. So if I was just doing a squat, just a regular squat, doesn't have to be a front squat, no back squat, nothing. What are some of the things that you guys would put in the bullet points for proper form?
Chest up, glutes back.
Okay. What
The
else?
way your foot is positioned.
Say it again.
Your feet, the way that your feet is positioned.
Okay, so good. I'm glad you said that. So the way that your feet are positioned, so you guys are both on the right track with all of this. So let's talk about the feet, because I want you guys to be specific on what you say. What should my feet be doing on a squat in an actual perfect squat form?
They both
That-
should be parallel, separated. Go ahead.
They should be at, both should be shoulders,
Shoulder width.
shoulder width
Yeah,
apart.
Part or a little bit more. Okay, so we got that part. So should my toes, and this is the kind of the goofy part of this, okay? Not goofy part, because there's like, if I'm being a total stickler, okay, and you're gonna do your squat properly, where should my toes be pointed?
Outward, right? Yeah, outward. Or is that how you say it?
So technically, and I agree with you on the outward, but technically, if you look into documents of how they say proper form, technically, if it's your basic squat, your toes are pointed forward. However, your toes need to follow what other joint in your body?
The knee. Wait.
Knees. Yeah, you were right. Okay. So if my toes, you want your knees to basically follow your toes. I don't want you guys to have like duck feet all the way out. Okay. So you're in an actual perfect world. Your feet shouldn't even be turned 20 or 45 degrees. Yes, I know it happens, because the reason that that might happen is someone may have tight ankles, tight adductors, so your feet turn out. More importantly, you need to make sure if your feet are turned out, your knees follow your toes. Okay, so yes, you guys are all correct with that. So knees follow toes because you don't want that valgus, which is your knee, coming inward. Okay, so let's go back to the feet really quick. If I have the feet, how should the balance be put on my foot? And everybody says it differently, so this is why I want to see what you guys are saying about it.
Were you saying like how do we balance ourselves when we squat?
Yeah. So what if you were trying to teach this to someone, what would, other than obviously having your feet turned out or knees following toes, what would you say for them to focus on with their feet? Like weight wise, or what part of your foot do you want down? Things of that nature.
I would just tell people, I always tell people like keep your heels on the ground the whole entire time.
Yep. That's a good one.
If you go
Point your
forward,
toes,
have
Say it
knee
again,
problems.
Paul.
point your toes more, try to keep your heel down.
So heel down, yes. Okay. So then, and this is why, okay, so there's a lot of terminology that you guys can do. Okay. What I tell people, and I'm a huge, huge stickler for form. Okay. So
With the dorsal.
if I keep telling you guys the same thing over and over again, just let me know. So I always say, so like when we talk about when we're like sitting on a bench or something, we have those 5 points of contact. I tell people there's 3 points of contact with their foot. Heel is number 1, big toe, little toe. Okay. And then you want to make sure your weight is distributed evenly. Okay. So when you do start squatting, your weight goes back on your heels. Okay. And glutes go back, but you don't want all the weight completely on your heels, obviously, because then your toes will come up. So you just, when you tell the individual to keep their feet balanced, okay, between heel, big toe, little toe, okay, it allows them to then grip the floor. Everything that you guys are doing with movements is going to start with your feet. I can't tell you how important your feet actually are. Okay. So the next time you guys go do an exercise or whatever, think about your foot. You'll be interested to see, hey, does my arch collapse? Does my foot go in? All that type of stuff. Okay. So you just things along those lines. And this is why when we are doing this and why we're going to turn in these assignments sporadically throughout this semester is so then we can talk about it as a group and you guys can make corrections if you want to. Okay. But yes, you guys are all absolutely on the right track. They don't need to be my complete words of what you guys are doing. Find a way that you think you want to describe this to the person. Okay. Everyone describes it differently. It just has to work. Okay. So when you describe it to someone, they have to be able to understand it and then mimic that movement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other, now that we're talking about form, okay, so obviously, like I said, you guys are going to have to try to put this form together, okay, and put it in 5 bullet points. Try no more. If you have to use a couple more, that's fine. We just don't want it to get too lengthy. Also, when you're talking to an individual that has maybe never done this before, you don't want to overwhelm them with 1,000,001 things. Okay. Are there any questions that you guys have in general about certain joints, body parts, or anything along those lines that pertain to form? Okay. Things that I would tell you that even if you're not putting completely in your manual, certain things you have to make sure that you are always telling your athletes. Your core is always engaged. Okay. So things that you can tell someone about your core, if you want your core to be engaged, think about your hips. Okay. So remember, we have the anterior or posterior tilt and anterior tilt. Okay. So when you are doing something, you don't want to have that anterior tilt where you have that curvature in your lumbar spine and your butt's kind of sticking out. Okay. So that way, when we say activate your core, tuck your butt under, okay, it gives you a little bit of a posterior tilt, okay, keep your rib cage in. That helps to activate your core, okay? And then one other thing that you should always be saying, you should have that straight line from your head all the way to your tailbone, which is basically called a neutral spine, okay? So those are things that should be given, but those are things that you guys should write down when you're talking about your form, because athletes will forget. Once you keep telling them and you write it down, you get them engraved in their head so they automatically know I'm about to do an exercise. I have to engage my core. I have to keep a neutral spine. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, all right, so for this exercise, okay, for this assignment, I should say, we are going to next week focus on resistance training. I believe your assignment, hold on, let me look at my calendar, is due, the first part of your assignment is due February 31st, okay, I think. I will look and I will post it on Blackboard just to make you guys, or just to make sure, okay? That's in a little bit more than a week, okay? If we see that that is not enough time, I do not mind extending it a little bit, okay? I know that things are not easy right now with getting into the gym, things of that nature, okay? There's a adjustment period for everybody, so please don't think I'm gonna be like, oh my God, it has to be due this day, and then that's it, okay? I want you guys to do this correctly. I want you guys to think about it, okay? So let's just keep that date in mind for you guys to be working on your resistance training, 12 upper body, 12 lower body. Let's take core out. We will do that at another time. Okay, makes sense to everyone? Okay, so before we sign off really quick, if you have not figured out your groups, okay, I will give you until Tuesday, but you will need to tell me Tuesday in class so I can write them down and I know how you are working. Okay, if we have an issue with a group or you find that working on your own is too hard, let me know. We will adjust and we can fix things as we go. Okay, I'm very easygoing with all of this stuff and happy to help you guys all out. You just have to make sure that you communicate with me fully. Okay, so that is your homework for this class. Start thinking about it because you don't want it to sneak up on you. For your 400 class, when we meet on Tuesday, you technically have no work to do beforehand, but we are going to be going over chapter 5 and 6. Okay, it's going to come up quick, but you guys have your first exam, so make sure you guys are looking at that stuff. It should be some review, so it shouldn't be brand new information to you guys. Okay, but like I said, I know there's a lot going on, a lot of classes online, things get really jumbled, so make sure you take a look at it so you know what we're getting into before we start class on Tuesday. Okay. Any other questions before I let you guys go for the day? Nope. Okay. All right. Nice job today, guys. Thank you for actually answering questions and things like that. It makes it a lot easier on Zoom, so I appreciate that. Let's try to keep this going through class for the rest of the semester, and you guys have already gotten through week 1. Okay. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys all in class on Tuesday.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Uh,
I got a quick question.
Yes. What's up?
So I have like an old like program from my team from like